welcome to your reading. This is going to be your geoscope for the upcoming lunar eclipse in Capricorn that happens on the 5th of July 2020. So this is a follow-up to the solar eclipse in Cancer that we had on the 21st of June. So as I always say, the two eclipses should be seen as a pair. The solar eclipse begins a new cycle and the lunar eclipse closes out energy from the previous cycle, sometimes the previous 2 or 3 cycles. And you know, this particular eclipse does have very strong resonances with the solar eclipse in Capricorn that we had in January of 2019, and it happens in a similar, I think, very same degree. So just something to think about. You know, it's possible that you are closing out things now that began around about that time. So let's get into your reading and find out what Spirit wants to tell you about either what you are closing out or what is becoming clear. Because full moon lunar eclipses tend to be about clarity. So things either kind of come to culmination or they come to a natural conclusion. Also, just to say that I have done some video horoscopes for each of the 12 zodiac signs, and those are available to members of my website. So if that's something that you're interested in, then do go to the link that's in the description box and sign up. It's free, and it will give you access to the membership area of my website where you can watch exclusive sort of forecasts and offers that I don't offer to the general public. If you're enjoying these geoscopes, then do leave me a comment or hit the like button. Your likes, shares and subscribes mean a lot to me at this stage because I'm just trying to get my channel established. Okay, let's see what's happening. Let's cut the cards. Okay, so you're kind of starting off this particular 2-week cycle feeling a sense of the impermanence of things. And that is, you know, it's a perfect some sort of symbol for life here on the earth plane. It is all kind of transient. You know, we do get born into bodies which gradually sort of decay over time, and it can sometimes be painful to have to accept that, you know, not everything lasts. So I think that that's really on your mind at the moment as we enter eclipse, the second part of eclipse season, is the transience or the impermanence of things. So here we've got Cauda Draconis. So this is the tail of the dragon. It's the south node in astrological speak. And I associate the south node very strongly with lunar eclipses because both are about release. So they're about endings, they're about release of some kind. And here your ending seems to have something to do either with where you live, perhaps an ancestral kind of pattern or inheritance of some kind. You know, it could be bloodline curse, for example. It may be the end of an era when it comes to a particular home that you've been living in. Maybe you're planning to relocate. You may have sold a property. There's lots of areas where you may be releasing when it comes to home, family and roots. Gosh, so now we've got Tristia. Tristia is a kind of companion to a Messiah in the sense that Tristia is about grief and sorrow and loss. So it's about the sense of you know, things leaving. And here we've got a 7th house placement. So it looks as if you are grieving the loss of a significant other. Now, this usually is somebody that you have had a long-term relationship with. So it tends to be a spouse, a committed romantic partner, or sometimes a financial or a business partner. But it's someone that you've known for a long time, that you've probably shared a lot of experiences with, and and now you are grieving the loss of either of that relationship or of that person. Now, it could well be a relative, could be a close family member, given that we've got this fourth house emphasis here, which is about endings and release. So this is also the end of a karmic contract. So it could well be that somebody close to you has passed on, possibly due to, what's kind of currently around, but, equally it could simply be that you have chosen to walk away from a relationship, that it's reached its sort of natural conclusion. When it comes to family, just because we're born into a particular bloodline doesn't mean that we necessarily have to be kind of tied to them our whole lives. Sometimes, even within families, there are major differences, sometimes in values, personalities, and so on. So on some level, you're definitely mourning the loss of a significant other. But, and here's the good part, you're headed for happiness. So whatever sorrow or loss or grief you're feeling, this ending that is being highlighted or kind of amplified by the lunar eclipse, you're definitely headed for happier times. This is Laitisha, this is Jupiter in Pisces. This is very happy, joyful, expansive, uplifting energy. So that's the good news, Scorpios. This is your future direction of travel. It's where you want to be heading. So you are definitely pivoting at this particular lunar eclipse. You kind of, I think, could spend the 2 weeks really purging and getting through all those feelings of loss, grief, and then you're going to kind of come out the other side with your face firmly towards the sun and the shadows at your back, kind of orienting towards life again, rather than the sort of, death and the more kind of heavy, sad emotions. But anyway, let's get into this a little bit further. I'm just going to pause the video while I do your conversions, and I'll be back in a minute. Hi Scorpio, welcome back to your readings. So as you can see, I've done all the geomantic conversions and I have placed them all in their correct house positions. So I think probably the first thing to say about your reading is that it's very much about what is going to be a short-term cycle. So just bear this in mind. It's going to be a 2-week cycle from the full moon lunar eclipse through the waning moon to the following new moon. Sometimes this energy can last for as long as a month, a lunar month, but usually it's about a 2-week cycle. So it is the tail end of something, and that is just worth bearing in mind. I think that's why we've got Carta Draconis here. This is just kind of basically at the foot of your reading, and then we've got it again in your 12th house. So this is very much about your mentality, your psyche, your internal state of mind. And I think this whole reading is really about that. It's interesting, I'm doing it on the day of the Jupiter-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, and this has a very kind of scorpionic feel to it. So I really feel as though this is a major turning point for you in terms of your state of mind, that this is almost the final kind of purging or catharsis before you really pivot and start that new cycle that was precipitated by the Cancer solar eclipse on the 21st of June. So anyway, with that said, let's have a look at what the eclipse itself is kind of doing. So for you, the eclipse will happen across your 3rd and your 9th houses. So this is the house of Capricorn, so this is where the moon will be, and this is the house of Cancer, so this is where the sun will be at the time of the eclipse. Eclipses always happen at a full moon, so the sun and the moon's energy tends to be polarized. We've got the earth in the middle, and the idea being that here we on earth are trying to balance these solar and lunar energies when they are at their most extreme. So it's interesting, we've got Rubeus here in your 3rd house, which is where all your emotional energy is going to be. This is the full moon. So we've got Rubeus, which is Mars in your sign of Scorpio. So this is really amplified emotions. These are sort of difficult emotions, deep-seated, not always easy to control. It's the passions that Scorpio is so familiar with, jealousy, anger, resentment, deep-seated grief, that kind of the moon, or sort of the wolf howling at the moon. It's that kind of energy, and it's taking place in your 3rd house. So this is the house of self-expression, of communication, as well as, other things like siblings, your immediate environment, and so on. But I kind of feel that this is very much about you expressing a lot of deep-seated, buried, or big emotions that maybe you've held in for a while and just need to kind of come out so that they can be released. So this is a kind of an emotional catharsis that I think is happening for you. Now, it's interesting that we've got the moon making a conjunction to Vega, which is the fixed star in the constellation of Lyra. Now, this does have some starseed overtones, so if that's something that you want to know more about, then do check out my video on IGTV for the solar eclipse, because I did a kind of a joint forecast there. But I think this has more to do with Orphic kind of energy, and Orpheus became the sort of symbol of death and rebirth for early Greek mystery cults like the Orphics, where they viewed his ability to be kind of dismembered and completely annihilated and then rise again with great awe. It was very much a religion about death and rebirth, and I think that fits perfectly with Scorpio. It's something Scorpio understands really well on a kind of archetypal level, and I think that it's a natural reaction if you have lost somebody close to you, that you are going to feel this, and it's part of the grieving process, not to let those emotions get stuck in you where they can poison you, but rather to allow the emotions to flow, because as they flow through you and out, so they take their natural course, and then they change by themselves, they alchemize by themselves. So I think that's what you're going to be doing at this particular full moon lunar eclipse. Now, it's interesting that we've got the sun in the 9th house here, and the 9th house tends to be our relationship to our maker, to spirit, our philosophy of life, and I kind of feel as though with Corsair here, this is Capricorn, Saturn in Capricorn energy, that you're feeling a little bit pessimistic and almost, why hast thou forsaken me? It's that kind of energy of, if I'm a good person and I do the right thing, and I have faith, why am I being tested? Why does this have to happen to me? I think it's that kind of energy of feeling trapped, limited, restricted, or just plain gloomy and pessimistic, which is, I think, perfectly natural and normal, if this is what has happened to you. Now, I know this reading won't resonate with everyone. I think it's, for a handful of people. So if it doesn't resonate, do check out your other natal placements, particularly your rising sign, because when I read for a particular sun sign, I'm actually reading as if that sun sign was rising, as if it was the ascendant. So just something to say there. So the sun is going to be in Cancer. It's going to be making a conjunction to Sirius, another important fixed star, very, very prominent star. It's the brightest star in our galaxy. So I really feel that this ties into this energy of Latitia. I do feel as though there's a pivoting happening. It's that kind of alchemy of it's darkest before the dawn, and I feel that this is really what is kind of going on here. That this is the end of an agredo process in the alchemical sort of terms. This is the kind of midnight point almost, after which things start to get lighter, gradually. So you're heading back towards the aurora, the sunrise to the dawn. But this might not feel like it at the full moon, because your emotions are going to be so amplified. But just see it as that almost that climax, that healing crisis before things start to finally pivot. Now, some good news. We do have Uranus in Taurus making a trine to the moon. So this should help with the shift. Now, Taurus for you is in your 7th house. So this is the house of committed partnerships and significant others. So I do feel as though you're going to turn a corner when it comes to your feelings of loss or grief, sadness, when it comes to this person. And you may start to see, the good that is brought into your life, what you've learned from this person, how all those memories that you've shared with them will never leave. You'll always have those. And in that sense, the person doesn't die to you ever. And also, let's not forget that we continue. Death is simply a transition from one state to another. And I think it's just important to remember that nothing really dies. It is simply transmuted from one state to another. And again, this is something that is a Scorpio, a very key archetypal Scorpio lesson. So, you know, just something to sort of bear in mind. And, you know, with Cauda Draconis here in your 12th house of the psyche, I do really feel as though you get this on a fundamental level. You understand that that this is an internal process of death and rebirth, and you know that you're going to come out the other side. Now, it's interesting that we've got Caput Draconis as one of your outcome cards. So this is the left and the right witnesses. So Caput Draconis is the head of the dragon. So this is the start of a new karmic cycle. I associate it very strongly with solar eclipses, which tend to begin a fresh 6-month solar lunar cycle, and that started for us at the solar eclipse at the solstice. So I kind of feel as though you are going to come out of this particular lunar eclipse feeling that sense of loss, accepting transience, but almost starting to sort of see it within the context of it's part of the sort of seasons of life, but it's not the only season of life. You know, this is almost kind of autumn and then going into winter, and then you're going to be coming out and moving back towards spring. And I think you're going to do so with determination. We've got Mars here in Aries, which is synonymous with the equinox energy of spring and with Aries season. And of course, Mars will have just shifted into the sign of Aries a couple of days before this eclipse on the 28th of June. And that is a kind of a reset for kind of Martian energy, which I think you understand fundamentally because Mars used to co-rule Scorpio before the discovery of Pluto. And it's interesting that we've got a repeat of this energy here in the 2nd house, which is income, possessions, self-worth, and resources. So I think there's a sense of inner resourcefulness within you that is able to kind of allow yourself to collapse onto the floor in a heap and then pick yourself up and keep going and start again. And I think that's what this energy is all about, is starting again. This is Mars kind of in its purest form. So this is very focused, motivated, energetic energy. It's often about beginnings. So it's that kind of that oomph that we have at the beginning of a project, that sense of freshness. And I think that this is what you're going to be really kind of valuing and sort of wanting to cultivate in your life to help you to sort of get back to a place of happiness and peace and contentment. But certainly I think you're going to be sharing some of these difficult feelings with possibly a lover or a child. This is the 5th house, and we've got Rubeus, you know, kind of echoed here. So I think that you do have support from others. This is emphasized by the 8th house, which is the Scorpio house, where we've got Fortuna Minor, and that's generally about moral support and help from others. So I do feel as though you're not in this alone, and that you do have someone that you can turn to share this experience with. The other way this energy can work is that you may also channel it into creative endeavors, or perhaps through workouts, you know, kind of working through stuff through, you know, kind of aesthetically through the muscles and that kind of thing, because 5th house also rules sport and hobbies. But I kind of feel like, you know, the other way that you can express this energy is through drawing, sculpture, some kind of creative pursuit that allows you to transmute those emotions into something beautiful and kind of universal. So that's another upside here. So yes, overall, you know, not the cheeriest of readings, but you know, I do think it's important that you kind of start and you end the reading in the same way. So in other words, you're on track, Scorpio. Whatever, even though it may not feel like it, even though you might feel like a hot mess, just know that you are going to be moving into this new energy shortly after the ending of this particular lunar cycle, and that you do have the internal strength and resources to pick yourself up, pivot, and start to move in a happier direction, in the direction of sunshine. So this is literally like that Maori proverb of turn your face to the sun, let the shadows fall behind you, which for me was the kind of theme of the solar eclipse solstice energy anyway. So this is really about reinvention. It's about a reboot internally, and nobody can do reboots quite like Scorpio. So I know you can do this. But anyway, I'm sending you a big hug and wishing you every strength and fortitude, and I'll catch you again in a week or two for my new moon geoscope.